Okay, and now we're going to talk about how you measure intelligence. So, I want you to think about this. Remember, how do we assess something we have difficulty defining? And so that's the big question with intelligence testing is like how we have a hard time defining intelligence. So, how do we measure and test it? Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is an intelligence test. Alfred Binet is going to create a concept of mental age. And so, mental age is going to be a measure of intelligence performance with a specific age. And then Lewis Terman is going to create the Stanford and Binet. So, what is going to happen is that Alfred Binet is going to create this intelligence test that gives you the idea of a mental age, like what your mental age should be. And it'll evaluate, like, that doesn't mean just because you're 12, you have to have a mental age of 12. You can have a mental age of like 21. And then Lewis Terman is going to create the Stanford Binet, where he's a professor at Stanford, and he's going to take the Binet intelligence test and add the Stanford labeling to it because he is going to bring the test, because Alfred Binet lives in UK. He's going to bring the test over to the United States and take mental age and bring the factor of the intelligence quotient. So let me zoom in there. The intelligence is IQ equals mental age over, what is it? Calculate age times 100. So the formula is used originally by Binet, and the average score is like 100. So people who fall in the middle, or their average, would fall into the 100 categories, average score. And CA is going to stand for chronological age, mental age, chronological age. And so when we talk about that, you have to understand that people actually still use this test today. And the formula was originally used by Binet, but then Terman took over and created the Stanford Binet intelligence test. And so then we have the Wechsler's intelligence test. Now, the WISE is going to stand for Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. Okay, here's what you need to write down with this. It contains verbal and nonverbal performance subsections, so it's broken into little sections, and it contains an overall score as well as individual scores on the subsections. Kind of reminds me of the SAT, how the SAT has different sections. Now, the WISC is for children, and then the WIPSI is for preschool children. So pretty much what you have to understand is it's like Wechsler Intelligence Scale children would be the C, and then Wechsler preschool children would take the WPPSI. So it's kind of interesting with this because the Stanford Binet is just kind of administered to adults or like young adults, but it's interesting with Wechsler's intelligence testing because he created 3 different tiers for adults, children, and then preschool children. And then you have modern testing. So there's 2 different types of modern testing, which all of you guys are probably experiencing that in high school right now. So aptitude testing is going to be designed to predict future performance. I always think of the work keys test that seniors take as like an aptitude test because it tells you like what you could be good at doing in the future. And then I think of achievement tests, which are designed to assess what we have learned. So achievement tests would be like the NC Common Exam that you take in the history department. We have one for world history, civics, and U.S. And then also the EOC that you take in biology, I think, or maybe even chemistry, where they're trying to assess what you have already learned. The SAT is similar, so is ACT. Then when we talk about the constructs of tests, okay, tests have to have some type of factors that make them fair evaluations or assessments of intelligence. So the first word is reliability, which yields every time that somebody takes the test, it yields consistent results for people. And then you have validity, think valid. It assesses exactly what it's supposed to do, okay? And then with standardization, the tests are given to groups of people for whom the test is designed. So you can't give the SAT to a group of 5-year-olds. It's not designed for a group of 5-year-olds. It's created for children between 14 and 18 to assess their preparation and level that they're ready for college. You can't give it to a 5-year-old. And then norms, and what you want to think about with norm, think normal, is that standardized test scores against which all other scores are compared. 2. So what you have to understand is a norm is going to be like the social norm or the ideal norm for intelligence testing. Is pretty much where most people fall, and then you'll have outliers either below or above that area. Also, the principles of test construction. So what you need to understand is that percentages under each section of the normal curve are going to represent the percentage of scores falling within that section for each standard deviation. I know that seems really epic, but what you just need to understand is that there's going to be, this is like a bell curve, and these people are kind of in the middle, and these people are above, and these people fall below, okay, the standard deviation of the scores. The next thing, when we talk about an IQ distribution, I just want you to look closely and see that this is a bell curve. So you have people that fall below. These are IQ scores. You have people that fall right in the middle, which is between 95 and 68% of the population. And then you have people that are above. Those are outliers. When we talk about bias in testing, IQ tests are truly attempts to assess our understanding of the world around us. But my question to you is, like, what happens if we are from different worlds? And when I mean worlds, I don't mean by aliens, guys, but I mean countries, regions, areas. You know, there's a difference. So there's a bit of bias, especially when you have the concept of westernization. And then we're going to talk about some extremes of intelligence. So first of all, the purpose of IQ testing is to identify who differs from the average by a great degree. So remember when I showed you the bell curve earlier, there was a large percentage of people that fall into the average range of intelligence, but there are people that fall below and above. It's just like when you're graphing in math and you have outliers. Those people are the outliers. So when we look, we talk about mental retardation or mental handicaps. The requirements for mental retardation is going to be having an IQ of either 70 or below, okay? And when I talk about adaptive behavior is below the appropriate level, I mean that the behaviors to adapt and function in society and in the world are not as developed as the average individual. And, you know, the previous two items of IQ and adaptive behavior have to be presented before the age of 18 years old. Like, you should be able to show some adaptive behavior with, you know, coming to kindergarten, school, things like that. And especially with IQ testing, you know, as soon as children begin grade school, they are being evaluated based off their IQ level. And there are several classifications. So when we talk about 50 to 69 IQ range, they are mildly or mentally handicapped. They can be educated, but they do have a level of mental handicap or retardation. And then when we talk about 35 to 50, there's a moderate level, and that means that they are trainable, as in they can be trained into a skill, but they may not be attending classes with typical children because they're considered exceptional. 20 to 35 would be severe mentally handicapped, and then 20 and below would be profound, which there's a lack of verbal skills, communication. They will not be able to function in society, but they will probably consistently have a caregiver. Really, though, when we talk about giftedness, the IQ is below 130, so that's gifted. And then the IQ that is above 145 is a genius. So we actually have like an organized and grouped people called a group called Mensa. And so when people take IQ scores and they score high into like the 145s and higher, they are considered a genius, and they can be invited to participate in a group called Mensa, which Mensa is around, people are in Mensa around the world, and Mensa actually like gathers people together to have think tanks, which think tanks are like where they try to sit together and problem solve. And that is pretty much the end. Let me know if you have any questions.